Camera time. Like this is
funny guy. Sorry, who's seen him on his show and realizes he like pretty much dominates the show and doesn't let anyone else speak? Anyone ever see that? Okay.
How many times you guys see Mike?
Okay, I just want to point that out. Yeah, thank you.
Shots fired.
I just think our identity is this: we're still making it and building it. So literally, we went from high school basketball where the guys went over to the U.S. They struggled at first, and now they've done well in the past. Guys like Tristan, Corey, Anthony have all succeeded. They did well. Then they went to college where we struggled a long time. Kids coming back home, all that stuff. But now, again, you look at last year, the Player of the Year in the conference, like 3 or 4 guys, so you can see their identity being built there. Now we're on the NBA level. This is where Giannis, everyone's just got to be a little patient and understand. Like now they're building an identity. We're building an identity in the NBA, and it's going to take a little time. But once they figure it out, they're going to do it, because Canada is always, forever going to be seen differently in people's eyes. We're always going to have to fight for what's there and so forth. And once our guys figure that out on the pro level, so they figured out high school, college, now they got to figure out the pro level, we'll continue to do well. That group that was with like Tristan Thompson and Melvin Edgem and Kofi Menza, like that group in general, at that time, I just remember them going over to the States and just really making a name for themselves through the AAU circuit, and then also with kids leaving and going off to prep schools in the U.S. and having to get that exposure at a different level. And obviously, it came with a lot of negative attacks on people, just kind of like, hey, why are they going to prep schools? They should stay here. And there's a lot of like people that either out of ignorance or out of hate just didn't really understand it. And a lot of those kids, whether it be Tristan and Melvin and Corey, all those different guys that have gone down in the States, they were able, those first guys that went down, they didn't do as well. That group in particular was able to succeed, do well, and then obviously went on to the college level. So now you see guys playing the NBA.
Thank you, Mike. Now,
again, I just think it's obviously with the influx and just different cultures being here, it's just like being in New York and DC, and those are hotbeds for basketball. And I think we've created one here, obviously, with having just different cultures here and people from different places, and obviously having basketball all over television and the success of guys that are now in front of them. Like, I remember a story with Tristan Thompson sitting in the gym, and he's, I guess the coach said, who here thinks they're going to make the NBA? And he put up his hand, and I remember the coach was kind of like, well, you're never going to make it. And he looked at what? And it's just an example of like our kind of thinking. And, especially if it was a hockey thing situation, I'm sure if a kid sees making NHL, but yeah, for sure you will. But basketball, no chance. And, thank God for kids like him that, they believe in themselves, they use that as motivation. And now today, if you ask kids if they think they'll make it, they'll put up their hand. I think a guy's a little bit more hesitant to be like, you won't make it. So I think with obviously the diversity in Canada, the success of the guys that are kind of before them, and the things happening on television, definitely the future's bright. So I can't speak.
Oh, are we letting you?
Okay, I just wonder if it's all right. I mean, first of all, I took, the courage to sit here between these two guys and make sure everything's peaceful, but I'm just kidding. It's a joke. But no, I think, obviously being involved on the AAU side and seeing where things are, just it goes like 5 years ago, all right? And, the provincial program, Canada basketball, and AAU, all fighting. And I'm just keeping it real, where the provincial team was kind of like, hey, if you do AAU, you can't play on the provincial team. If you do this, and so it's just all this inner fighting, and a lot of it just came down to a lack of understanding of what each was doing, and then 2 was pride. A lot of it was just pride, and people say, well, that's my guy, that's my kid. And the last time I checked, they have 2 parents, and that's who their kid belongs to, right? But at the end of the day, we have this sense of entitlement from all programs, was a Canada basketball provincial team in AAU. However, these last, I would say to you, like 3 or 4 years, it's actually 2 years, I would say there's been a huge change in regards to communication. And Rowan Barrett, more him and Wayne Parrish, I remember having like countless meetings with him and Maurizio and sitting down and having a conversation. It's the first time that you actually felt respected, because we're not your normal AAU program. It wasn't like you just popped up in the summer and you started playing basketball. It was like, this was like your OBA, September to like April when it was finished, and then you continued from April right to August. So it wasn't your typical AAU you have in the US, where it's like, they just pop up in the summer after high school season, they play. AAU in Canada is like year round. So it was a little different. So when you felt a little bit disrespected when people would say like, well, you know, we develop a little bit differently. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've been in that gym from like this time to this time, working this kid to that kid, and no knock on any other coach, but I think I know what I'm doing. And I think that when you look at the program and the success of the kids coming out of there that spend countless hours, whether it's like with CI Bounce, it's grassroots, it's Brampton Warriors, Mississauga Monarchs, those are the programs you're spending day in, day out. And they're like 6 years old, 7 years old, you have to respect that. And what's happening these last 2-3 years is people are now starting to respect that, because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, and there's no knock on Canada basketball, but your job is to get the best players, prepare them for 2 weeks, go compete. So technically, you're like the typical AAU team in the US. But what's happening now is Canada basketball is now starting junior academies, they're doing different programs. So now you see there's more invested time in these kids and develop them throughout the year, not just for those 2 weeks. So I think as a whole, there's been a change. And Coach Ravlin has also been a big part of that with the Nike and coming in and kind of monitoring or, you know, mentoring that relationship and making sure that everyone's kind of getting along and the Mark Main. And I would just say, like, now we're in a good place. Is it perfect? No, but at least I see and hear this communication. Before I left out, there's a lot of communication in regards to, here's our dates for this event, what are your dates? And there's a respectful line between all the AAU programs, the provincial program, and Canada basketball.
Cool, awesome.